price for his actual RV park. But yeah, so this doesn't even show, if you go north on that property, the top of it, that little hatched area is where the RV park is gonna be, and then it probably stops at the property line, which is, what I measured it out, it's about 500, it's between 500 and 600 feet, depending on where you measure from before you even get to the property line. So there's a lot of wooded property there. So, it's pretty secluded as far as that goes. So they were concerned about maybe some noise or people using golf carts to drive around and get back into their property somehow. But, so they're happy with what Mr. Fairclough is doing, and, so they were in support of it.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if Mr. President would ask questions now or during discussion.
Sure,
I did get a couple of phone calls from folks that live out there, and they're not opposing the project. They don't oppose it, but they would just like some reassurance of the buffering.
Right.
They're asking for a 250 to 300 foot buffer.
Right.
And I don't know if that needs to be done in the form of a setback. And Brian and I talked a few minutes ago, and he's well aware of, the conversations. And as you know, in the future, should this property sell, if Mr. Fairclough sells it, those neighbors just want the assurance that a future buyer comes in and develops all the way out to the property line. And they just said they felt like that if they had something in the development regulations or some setback off the property line. I know in the agriculture business now you have to have a setback of 250, 300 foot for, certain ag bit, proposals to go in. And I think that may be appropriate here. I know there's a lot of, woodland and wetland out there that would be a challenge for somebody to develop all the way out to that property line, but I think those property owners that I talked to feel more comfortable if that does happen.
And that could be, we had brought that up in the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, that the commissioners, in granting the special exception, can make it subject to. So, subject to a 200-foot buffer or whatever from the property line. I mean, you can put any kind of conditions that you want in there to grant that special exception. So those are all things that in granting that, you can make those conditions of the special exception. Also, the way, which was reassuring to the people that attended, and just to clarify, special exceptions, like Sherilyn had said, don't change the land use. It's just allowing them to do that. So if he sells the country club, and for some reason then that RV park is not operated as an RV park for over a year, it just reverts back to residential. So, I mean, it stays residential, the country club is an allowable use in residential, the RV park is not. So as long as it continues to operate as an RV park, it can stay that way. But what he has submitted is all you're giving him the special exception for. If he ever wants to enlarge it or anything like that, that would have to come back before the board. So he's just, you're just allowing him to do what he has requested with any conditions that you want to put on it. And if anything ever changes, it has to come back to the board. He can't just decide to keep expanding it. Or if he sells it and somebody wants to do that, they would have to come back before y'all also.
Well, Jeannie, I wanted to ask that question. We're granting an exception to the Madison Country Club owned by Mr. Fairclough. Should a new owner come, wouldn't they have to come through the same process he's doing right now?
Well,
Or would he?
That's kind of, once it's granted, it's sort of, then it's granted, yes, sir.
It wouldn't change.
As long as it doesn't change.
It would not change.
Right.
Okay.
I think what Ms. Bass was talking about though is, if for some reason it wasn't operated as an RV park for a certain amount of time, it doesn't matter who owns it, the same
It would revert.
the special exception would be lost.
Okay.
So, when y'all, I think Ms. Davis, what you were talking about, if you want to put those kind of restrictions on it, what you need to do is, make a motion to approve subject to the following restrictions, and then list those out. And you can do that in the form of a certain number of feet buffer from the property line, or you could just say to, as shown in whatever this drawing, that it would not be increased beyond what's in this drawing without coming back to a special exception. That would be another way to approach it.
Can I speak to that?
Yes.
So when we purchased the golf course, I think 2013, And this is in a document, and I don't have it with me today, but it was done at Judge Browning's office. I don't know exactly who did that. So. But anyway, we gave them a 250, there was already a 250-foot buffer. So it goes from the property line to actually, there's a fence and a gate. And some of those residents use that access on their golf carts to come play golf. So we told them that we would still honor that. Because there was a resident that said, look, are you gonna fence it up because we can't get through? And I was like, no, we won't do that. We'll leave it open. We're gonna put some nice landscape hedging along the buffer line for 250 feet on our property to give a nice barrier there, which will take care of any sound if there was. And then I'm gonna work with one of the residents there, Jim, to get the gate back functioning so that we can actually lock that gate, and the residents from Country Club Estates will only have access and the code to it. So you won't be able to leave the campground and go into their neighborhood on a golf cart or whatever. So we're very happy to do that, 250 feet from the property line. That'll solve a lot of problems that we might, because some of the residents back there have built things on our property, and we're gonna work with them individually. And then the other thing that I told them, and you may remember, if we ever sell it, and we have no intentions if this project goes through to do that, I would go to them and say, do you wanna buy that buffer? Do you wanna own it as a Country Club Estates or as individuals? And then they're protected, forever. Right now that we can't do that because there's a lot of things that would have to go into that, but we certainly will give them 250 easily and with no hardware. Because they got it anyway, it's already there. Yes, sir.
I guess, Mr. Chair, the only other question I had was, in the plans that were called for individual metering of the spots. Is there a reason, a purpose for individual electrical metering of each spot? Or I thought they would just pay like a daily or a weekly lease or rent on the space? And how permanent does that make that RV there?
Well, the individual metering allows, so it's common in campgrounds, the one that's here in Madison and other ones around the country, that if you stay for one night or 2 nights or 3 weeks, you pay your electricity bill. If you're gonna stay for a month or 2 months, then, that is read and paid in that form. So it's just commonplace to have you responsible for your electricity, generally over a month, but it depends on, individual park owners. And to answer the other part, we don't intend for this to be a full-time residential trailer park location. I mean, these are gonna be people that come in, they may stay one night, they may stay 3 or 4 months if they're from the Northeast and they wanna get out of the snow, but we don't intend for this to be a full-time, there's a big difference in an RV resort and what some people may think we're doing, but this is a temporary passage.
If you want to see, Tim Payton, Madison, if you want to see, and unfortunately the name RV Resort came up, go down to Williston, look at what they've done. A city about the same size as Madison has a tremendous asset.
Okay. Any other comments? Vote. Mr. Davis, you have?
No, that was the only questions that I was asked to bring forward.
She's going.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to grant the request, special exception request.
With the condition of the 250-foot buffers.
Yeah, he said that he would,
Yeah.
put in that additional buffer. Is that it?
If we
That's
could.
my understanding, right?
It is, and I told one of the residents that if we can even go another, we can give them another 50 feet, we will, but 250 is what we're comfortable with because of the lay of the land and how we have to square it up. So yes, 250 is,
Okay.
and we'll make it very noticeable, very defined, and they were happy with what I told them at that meeting, so we'll honor that.
Okay.
Right.
Ms.
We're at
Pickles?
250.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask Ms. Pickles to read the resolution.
The recommendation.
Recommendation, excuse me.
The P and Z recommendation was for the Board of County Commissioners to approve the special exception subject to any buffering and site plan requirements for access.
Okay, that'll be my motion.
Well, I think that,
Yeah, that covers it.
That's definite.
all right, I have a motion and a second to, allow the, land use change for the Madison County Gun Club.
Special exception. not
Special
land use.
exception, excuse me, special
So-
exception.
Just, I want to clarify, does that motion mean, their recommendation subject to buffering, our approval will be based on a 250-foot buffering zone? Is that what you're?
Their P and Z's recommendation did not specify a specific number, it just said buffer.
Right. I would say
So if
that's
you're
what we
wanting
need
to
to clarify.
include the
Yeah.
250,
I think we need
you would
to
need
have-
to specify that.
Yeah, I agree that we need to specify the number and.
I'm just asking.
Well, I
Commissioner,
understand,
if
but
that's-
there's, looking at the layout of the area, and I've talked to some of the residents of the area, they support, what you're trying to do there. But if you're willing to go ahead and do that additional footage on the buffering, I'd just like to put that be part of the motion.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
I would rather do that because it allows me to tell the builders and the survey folks and everything, this is what we have to work within. Don't cross this boundary and we're done.
Yeah.
And that way, we don't come out and go, we're sorry, we made a mistake, it's very defined, don't get within 250 feet of that neighborhood. And I don't wanna be that close anyway, but I'm comfortable that we can make it work.
Okay, so you're comfortable with the 250?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right,
So that's part
that's
of.
part of the motion.
Part of the motion, and you go second.
Yes.
Can I restate the motion?
Yes.
Approve the special exception application subject to a 250-foot buffer and any site plan requirements for access.
I think it's subject to a 250-foot buffer from neighboring property lines. And then I think if you're going to put a site plan requirement, you'll need to set out what site plan requirement. If you don't put in a site plan requirement, there wouldn't be any additional site plan requirement. I don't think anybody's discussed any thus far, but you're certainly free to put that in.
Well, that wasn't part of the recommendation from the P and Z board, or?
Site plan requirements was part of the
Oh,
recommendation.
was?
Yeah, site plan would be
I think that's just whatever is already in the,
For access.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't that, did you read that? I thought I heard you put in site plan.
Their wording was site plan requirements for